Thank you, Eddie. Now don't sit down, then whatever you want to climb up. Come on. Right, sit down.
Second year Chinese assembly. Since January, the start of January, the whole of the second year have been working on a project to do with China. And we had hoped to show you near the Chinese New Year festival that happened early in February, this performance, but we've had to keep putting it off for various reasons. But that shouldn't spoil the enjoyment that you're going to see now. The group that's going to start off our assembly is 2T, and they have collected quite a lot of facts and information about China. After that, you're going to see some puppet shows done by 2A and 2J. But first of all, 2T.
Good morning, everyone. 2T would like to tell you some interesting things about China. Country, bigger than any country in the world except Russia. And China has more people than any country in the world. In fact, nearly a quarter of all the people in the world are Chinese.
Many of the things we are all used to today, such as paper, printing, fireworks, fine pottery and silk, were all invented long ago in China. The Chinese civilization is the oldest living civilization in the world. It has about 3,000 years of continuous history. No one knows for certain where the Chinese people came from, but we do know that the bones of some of the very first human beings to exist have been found near Peking, the capital city of China.
China was ruled by an emperor from families known as dynasties. When a dynasty became evil and weak, then someone from another family would come forward and find a new dynasty.
If you go to a museum in the Chinese section, you may see beautiful vases described as Ming or Tang. These are the names of dynasties and are used to distinguish periods of Chinese art. The emperors ruled China until 1911.
One night in the year 1908, the Emperor of China lay dying. He had no son to follow him, so a little boy from Peking called Pu Yi was chosen as his adopted son to succeed him.
Pu Yi, who was only 3 years old, had to leave his family and live in the Emperor's palace. He was brought up to believe that he was not like anyone else. In fact, he was called the Son of Heaven. He had no friends to play with and was never allowed outside the palace walls.
In the year 1911, when Pu Yi was 6, there was a revolution in China. For a long time, the ordinary people of China have become poorer and poorer, and many families died of starvation. Something had to be done to improve the life of the Chinese people. Those people who wanted to keep their emperors had no great leader, only a little boy of 6. So in 1911, a new Chinese republic began, and the little emperor was made to give up his throne, but Pu Yi was allowed to go on living in the palace until he grew up.
One of the most famous Chinese people of all time is a man named Confucius, who lived from 551 to 480 BC. He was a very learned man who spent much of his time studying what had happened in the past. He was a very famous teacher and taught that everyone must behave properly to everyone else. They must observe what he called the 5 relationships.
He said there should be a special sort of behaviour, first between ruler and subject, second between father and son, third between older and younger brothers, fourth between husband and wife, and fifth between friends. If everyone kept these 5 relationships properly, the country would be at peace and people would be happy. He also taught that people must do what was right, even though it might bring them suffering. Unfortunately, it was not until after his death that people realised what a great teacher Confucius was. For many years, the first thing any Chinese child learned at school was to recite the sayings of Confucius from memory.
Confucius came to be worshipped almost as a god.
In the year 221 BC, the first emperor of China, started to build a great wall right across the north of his empire to keep out fierce tribes from attacking his country. The wall was stood on a distance of 1,500 miles and took 7 years to build. Many horrific stories are told of the building of the wall, and working conditions were so difficult that thousands of workers died and were buried inside the clay of the wall.
There is a story that a magician told the emperor the wall would never be finished until 10,000 men had been buried in it. So the emperor found a man called Wen, which is Chinese for 10,000, and had this poor man buried alive inside the wall, so the magician's words would be fulfilled. Superstitious people who believed in magic used to say that the emperor had ridden across the mountains on a magic horse, making the wall appear behind him as he went along, and that wherever the horse stamped its hooves, a watchtower appeared.
But the Great Wall of China was not made by magic.
It was made by the work and lives of thousands of men.
Rice is China's most important crop. Most Chinese people eat rice at every meal, just as we eat bread and potatoes. The Chinese have grown rice for more than 2,000 years. The rice seedlings are planted in flooded padded fields, and men and women work hard all day in muddy water, pushing plants firmly in the ground.
The national drink of China is tea. Long ago, the Chinese discovered that drinking water straight out of a well or stream was unhealthy. But if the water was boiled, then it was safe to drink.
They then started adding various things to the boiled water to flavor it, and soon found that leaves from a wild tea bush added to the water made a very refreshing drink.
In China, no one takes milk or sugar with their tea.
Beautiful objects, exciting stories and colorful festivals with processions and fireworks, but they have also had to work very hard to provide enough food for all their people. They have learned to waste nothing and to make do with very little when times are hard. Perhaps we can learn something from them.
Story of the Western Pavilion. A young student called Chang stops at a monastery for the night. He sees Yingying, a beautiful girl, and arranges to stay in a room overlooking the western chamber where Yingying lives with her mother. Suddenly the peace is broken. A notorious bandit, the Flying Tiger, is marching on the monastery with a troop of 5,000 men. His real purpose is to seize the beautiful Yingying and force her to be his wife. Chang is both frightened and pleased. Frightened lest the bandit should arrive too soon, and pleased because there is a chance of saving her and winning her for his wife. Her mother agrees that if he can rescue her, she shall be his wife. Chang rides at great speed across the country. A sworn brother of his has become leader of the army. He reaches him. His friend brings the army to the rescue, and the monastery and Yingying are saved, but there is trouble to come. The student sees the beautiful Yingying. Chang is invited to a Thanksgiving feast, but when he arrives he learns that his mother will not keep her promise. He is too unhappy to eat. The maid offers him wine, but he is too upset to accept it. Poor Yingying herself stands by her mother. She does not know what to do. She has never felt so sad in her life. Yingying is sad because she loves Chang more than she realised. Now her mother keeps them apart. Chang plays himself on the lute. He cannot settle down to anything for long. Yingying hears him and comes quietly across the grass with her maid. She stands by the wall listening to her lover. In the morning, Chang sits in his room and looks out towards the western chamber and imagines his love still sleeping in her bed. I see the laid hair pin not properly fixed, slanting downwards, and her clouds of hair are all dishevelled. Yingying's maid agrees to help Chang. When the mother is away, the maid signals to him. Quickly Chang slips over the wall and through the forest, but Yingying is furious with him. She knew nothing of the plans. Is she frightened or just startled? She begs him to go back, and hardly believing his ears he goes. He passed the home where Yingying lived, and at that moment he saw Yingying. They had to marry straight away. They couldn't hold on much longer. They were married at last. All their friends brought rich gifts and everybody was very happy. Yingying and Chang lived happily ever after. Night. Once upon a time in ancient China there was a wicked dragon. The dragon was fierce, but one day 2 knights came along, and the knights went to the emperor's castle. One of the knights said, "I wonder why the emperor wants to see us." The emperor said, "Come in, brave men. I have called you here for a special reason. The people of the village and I want you to kill the wicked red dragon. So they set off on their journey. When they got to the dragon's cave, the dragon flew out and started to breathe fire at them. But the knights had a magic horse. The horse flew in the air and started to go after the dragon. When they got near to it, the knights stabbed the dragon twice. But the dragon still lived, and the other knight was near a lake. He forced the dragon to come near him. The dragon flew at him and fell in the water, and the dragon's fire was gone. Now the other knight stabbed the dragon 3 times, and the dragon died. Back at the emperor's castle, the emperor greeted them. Once upon a time in China, there lived some animals. There was a tiger, a monkey, an ox, a rat, a dragon, a horse, and a snake. One day they all started arguing over because they wanted their name to be, the year to be named after them. The rat stayed away and watched everything. Soon the rat thought, I must go to the fairies. So he went to the fairies and told them the whole story. The fairies said, yes, I will help you. So they went back to see all that was happening. The tigers and everything were still fighting over each other. Then when they saw the fairies, they stopped. The fairies said, what are you arguing over? They all said at once, they wanted their name to be the year named after them. The fairies said, okay, why don't you all have a race across the river tomorrow? The fairies said, on your mark, get set, go. They all started swimming across the river. The dragon was in the lead, but opened his mouth to take a breath and gobbled some water and went down. Now the ox was in the lead, and the rat quickly jumped onto the ox's back. When the ox was just about to touch the bank, the rat jumped over the ox's head and won, and said, oh, I've won, I've won, I've won. And so the year was named after the rat.
The story of the evil magician. Once upon a time in ancient China, there lived an emperor called Liao Xiao. He had a beautiful daughter who was set to rule after the king. They lived in a village in the middle of the woods. Their castle was surrounded by trees. On the other side of the woods, there lived an evil magician who wanted all the emperor's treasure, and he wanted to rule over the emperor's kingdom. He didn't want the villagers to be happy. One day, the emperor invited all the villagers to a feast in the village because it was the emperor's daughter's birthday. All the villagers were very poor and they were very delighted to come to the feast. But the villagers were so poor that they couldn't even afford to give the princess a present. But the emperor and the princess were still happy because the villagers came to the feast and made it a good one. The villagers were so poor that the emperor gave them some money and some land, and the villagers thanked him. While the villagers were enjoying themselves, the evil magician was making a bad spell to make all the villagers very sad. But the villagers did not know that the evil magician was going to make them sad. The evil magician finished his spell and he said his finishing words, which were, Mahori, Mahora, let the people of this village be Mahori, Mahora. And then the big pot goes bang, and a dragon came out of the big pot. And the evil magician ordered the dragon to kill all the people, including the emperor, but bring the princess to me. So the dragon went to the village to kill all the people and get the princess. That day, a prince was passing through the village and he saw a small boy crying.
So the prince asked him, "Why are you crying?" The boy said, "The dragon has been and has killed all my family, and he has taken our emperor's daughter." And the emperor says, "Whoever rescues my daughter can marry her." And also the young boy said, "She is very beautiful." So the prince went to the rescue. The princess and the dragon had not gone very far when the prince saw him. The prince followed the dragon to the other side of the woods. There he saw a house. The dragon went inside the house. The prince went near the window of the magician's house, and at first look at the princess, he was in love with her. Then the prince burst into the house and said, "Let the princess go." Then the evil magician told the dragon to kill the prince. The dragon tried to grab the prince, but the prince saw an axe near the fire. The dragon tried to grab the prince again, but as the dragon went down to get him, he moved out of the way and got the axe. And while the dragon was down, he chopped the dragon's head off. The magician was standing near the fire. When the prince chopped the dragon's head off, the princess screamed. The prince turned around with a shock, and the axe went flying out of his hand, and it hit the magician. And the magician went into the fire, and the magician got burnt and died. The prince took the princess back to the village, and the emperor said that they would be married the next day, and after that they lived happily ever after.
Story.
Once, when heaven was nearer earth than it is now, there lived in Chinaland a lovely maiden, the beautiful Kunsi. Her skin was softer than the peach blossom, her eyes were dark as jade behind her fan. When she bowed, people thought of the slender willow drooping over the river. Her father, the Mandarin, ruled the province for the emperor, son of heaven. The Mandarin was master of life and death, with soldiers to do his bidding. Everybody feared him. He was also a merchant trading in the wonderful ware the china potters made. Also pearly rice and fragrant tea. He was greedy, grudging every penny, but he still wasn't satisfied. He had only one clerk, Chang.
Chang! Not enough money. More tax.
He had to run the Mandarin's business by himself.
I have been told the hard work you have to do. I can count. I will.
Thank you, Your Highness.
The Mandarin collected taxes for the emperor, son of heaven, always keeping a large slice for himself. His wealth doubled, trebled, and quadrupled, but he still was not satisfied. He walked in his garden thinking, and his thoughts were about his daughter, the beautiful Kuxi. He said,
Read well, the beautiful Cooksey and the handsome chap worked together amid the dusty ledges of the counting house. Love grew between them, as love will grow. The rustle of the rice paper and the scratching of the ink brushes was music sweeter than the ripple of the river and the quiver of the breeze through the willows. Their love was unspoken, for Chad, though handsome, was but a Lowland clerk, and Cooksey, though beautiful, was the mandarin's daughter. The Mandarin and the Honourable lived in many journeys to and fro.
I want to work with you. Do you want to marry my daughter? Yes, please, yes. But there is one thing. You must give me a large sum of money for her wedding present. Yes. What can I give her for her wedding present? I shall give her a wonderful necklace made of gold. Bring my treasure box. I shall give her this one. It's made of gold. Take this picture.
He instructed his messenger to deliver the gift into the beautiful hand of Cooksey. Cooksey was in the counting house, calculated the rice harvest on the abacus with a handsome, if lonely charm. Cooksey shuddered like willow leaf. Chang the handsome put his strong arms around her.
We will put your bows and guns, beautiful one. And what island will we set together?
The midnight moon hid behind the pagoda. The man who slept off the supper wine. Across the plains, Lin Fu checked the figures of the marriage settlement on the abacus. The beautiful Cooksey tiptoed on her tiny feet from her father's house to the river bank, where her handsome Chang waited in the shadow of the willow tree. Silently the handsome Chang piloted the sampan out of a mooring into the great river, past the bridge, past the causeway, past the gardener's cottage by the water's edge.
My daughter
Mandarin and the soldiers, Ling Fu and the governor rushed to the bridge in time to see the sampan with the fleeing lovers glide into a celestial island far away, the island of the tea house. There and thus the esteemed artist of the willow pattern has trapped them forever.
Some people say that the young lovers reached their celestial island and lived happily ever after.
Some say that the tea house is no tea house but the pagoda of the gods, and that while the beautiful Kung Si and the handsome Cheng were offering incense, the Mandarin soldiers surrounded the pagoda, but the gods always take pity on young people in love. They change the lovers into lovebirds. So the story goes, and to this day these lovebirds chirp only in the willow branches by the river.
Other people say that the savage soldiers killed the young couple and that the souls of the two doves we see flying above the water.
I like to believe that the beautiful Kung Si made her father, the Mandarin, a lovely cup of tea in that tea house, and therefore he agreed to her marriage with the Honourable Chang, and of course they lived happily ever after.